Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back. It's week 2 on the amber build, and we're getting down to it. I think we'll certainly be able to finish this week. Now, I worked a little bit on the skin this morning before turning the camera on, just putting some of the washes in that will give me the darkest parts. And in some cases, I'm going to leave it. Some cases I'm going to be airbrushing over it. Now I've started putting some shading into the head, and I will be airbrushing over top of that. But I wanted to at least start roughing in where I think the shadows should be, and doing things like getting the shading between the fingers, that sort of thing. I've dipped the lollipop here into some gloss red, even though I know the lollipop itself is pink. I'm choosing to make it red because I like that pop of color against everything else. I think that's going to show up really nicely. I am down to putting the fabric, or the screening on the butt cheeks. Now I've read the comments from last week. I understand where you're coming from, but it's not something I feel like I'm going to change. So. You got two chances. You got two choices. You can live with it, you can like it, or you can lump it. No, I don't mean to discount the comments, but getting the screening in here was tough enough without having to really keep my mind on the orientation of whether or not it was diamond shaped or square. If you look at the leg like this, the diamond shape is on the knee here. It's not that tough of a reach to believe that somewhere underneath here it started out straight and then got twisted up. So that's what I'm going to do. That's the story I'm sticking with. It just flowed better that way. If I try putting it the diamond shaped way, I've got to fight another set of influences that want to make it go a certain way. And I think we can live with this. Now, the butt cheeks on the back, and yes, I know they're butt cheeks. We're going to be doing the same way, and I think I'm going to have to break this up into a couple different pieces. One for the actual cheek because of the contours there, and then one for the lower thigh. So we're going to be making a seam right here. So we're going to be making the seam in the pantyhose, so to speak. And yes, I'm going to try to make more of an effort to make it diamond shaped, but I'm not promising anything. Alrighty, I've got the easy parts done. The part that doesn't cover the actual cheek, but the upper thighs. And yes, they are straight, just like the fronts are. I wanted them to match. So if you look around it like that, it doesn't look wildly inconsistent. Now I'm going to see if there's an opportunity to do more of a diamond pattern on the cheeks themselves, but he said cheeks and then butt, on the butt cheeks, but it may end up looking odd that way. So because this is a compound curve, I basically have to get one side, roll it around the edge, and then dart it around to make it match, sort of like what I did on the knees. But he says butt again, sorry. However, the easy part of the leg is done. Alright, so I'm starting to work on the face, and I'm happy with aspects of it, not happy with others. That's nature of the beast. Obviously I don't have any of the eye makeup on yet. I'm concentrating on making sure the pupils are in, they're the right size, they're pointing the same direction. The skin tones are kind of starting to come together. Her lips are too dark, they need to be pinker than that. They're too dark or red, but what this needs is the smoky eyes. So what I think I want to do is let this dry, and then I'm going to hit it with the flat coat, and that flat coat will take away a lot of the brush stroking, and also it will give me a base so that when I put the smoky eye on it, if I don't like it, it'll be easier to wipe it off without ruining the underlying paint. But this is a good place. I want to lock in what I've got done here and then build on it. I've got the butt cheek screens, and that was my college band, the butt cheek screens. I got the butt cheek screens painted. I'm going to go ahead and put those down next. I don't know why you're looking at me. I don't like doing this stuff on camera, but see, I'm checking her against the rest of the torso to make sure that her skin tones are consistent with what's happening on the chest. All right, so we've got the one cheek down, and it's kind of 50-50. It's diamond shaped, but also squared off. It meets the bottom seam, I think, there pretty nicely. We just had this last little bit to go here on this side, and yes, I hear you. And then we'll be done with the fishnettery, and we can touch up all this green and black paint around it and hit it with a clear coat. Okay, the last cheek is in, and now that we've got to this point, I think we can go ahead and glue the legs in. What that's going to do is give me more surface to hold this with, so that I'm not, necessarily touching the skin that I want to touch up. And I can make sure that when I am spraying my green that it's consistent all the way down the leg, because I do need to repaint this green area in here. So let me go ahead, as long as the inside legs are done, which these are, those are the two areas that I won't be able to get into after the legs are glued down, is the inside gap. That's the inaccessible part. So I can go ahead, glue the legs in, and that will make it a whole lot easier to work, and I'll just have two big chunks top and bottom that way. Alrighty, I have got the legs glued into the hips. I got the old hip bones connected to the leg bone, and now we're in a live and let dry mode, because what I've done is I've taken some of the darker gray, or dark gray, gray-green, I'm sorry, and I've blended it into these legs to make sure that the leg is matching the upper chap area. So I've darkened those down, and I have done a bit of pre-shading. See, all of these are blending together now, and I can let this, like I said, let this dry, come back to it, I'll do a lighter pass over the top of that just to unify all of these greens. I won't repaint the entire thing, but I'll kind of blend down to about there, keeping my thumb over the mesh areas to make sure I don't monkey around with any of the hard work I've put there. But we now have half an amber right here, with the exception of having the knife glued onto her hip. That kind of stuff comes last. This will go right there. But I think I've got the face to the point where I want to hit this with a flat coat, let that dry, and come back in and maybe do the eye makeup. I put the highlights in the eyes, and I think that helped me a lot. I still don't have the lashes on or the smoky eye makeup, and I do need to pink up the lips a little bit, but mostly happy with how that looks. I'm going to do a dry brushing of brown highlights in the hair. I know her hair is not jet black. She does have a bit of a brown highlight to it, so I could take a dry brush over that once I have got everything underneath a flat coat. So let's go flat coat this now, and we'll let the rest of this dry and maybe call it for today's work. Alrighty, I think we're done for today's work. I've been touching up little bits here and there, went back in with the green and touched up where I had slopped the silver a little bit, so that's been neatened up. I included the silver on her hat. I've also put the white on the collar. The head is the piece that probably needs the most amount of work. I'll take that on tomorrow. Her hands are looking pretty good. I got to do a little bit of research to see what her nail polish color is. If it's more than just a clear, in which case I'll just put a gloss over it, but I have a feeling it's going to be a pink like her lipstick, so I can get that paint out and do all of those parts at the same time. Also have to rework the gun a little bit. Obviously it needs to be darker than that. Get that finished and down into her hand, and then it'll just be a matter of the lollipop and getting this hand in place. Again, the same question about her fingernail polish, and then get that glued in with said lollipop. I think the bright red is really a good idea for that, just to bring that bullseye of color right there. I got to touch up some silver, or touch up the black around the silver around her belt. That's something we can start the morrow with. And I also need to repaint these black belt, the black straps and the silver belt buckles on her pants, where I had to paint over those in order to unify that green. Morning everybody, welcome back. It's Tuesday and work is wrapping up really on Amber here. Now we're pretty much done from here up, or from here down. I need to give this one coat of a flat spray to kind of blend in, because I did repaint the straps in black, and I do want to seal all of that in. But that's pretty much where I'm at on her. Now I'm going to have to protect the boots to keep them gloss while I spray the flat coat, but that's going to be mostly up here, because the legs and down at the bottom of the legs, I haven't touched all that much since I joined those two pieces together, and that blending is really all that I'm trying to work in. So flat coat on her hips, or her waist down to about her knees. We'll finish the bottom part off. Now the top part is also mostly done. I've glued the hands into the wrists, or the wrists into the lower arms. I've touched up all of the accents, the silver accents and the black. I've got her weapons pouches and her holster glued down. Again, I said got the lollipop in. This could stand to have a good flat coat to unify all of those. I'm really happy with how her chest is looking as far as the painting is going. I don't want to overly accent or overly shadow some spots. When you get to subjects at this scale, just natural sunlight will throw a lot of shadows, and you don't have to do too much work. You don't want it to look flat by any means, but you don't have to do a lot of work as far as painting the contours in, because like I said, sunlight will take care of that. That's your best friend here, and that is only going to leave her head. Now I've gotten her lips painted the right color. I want to put a gloss over her eyes and her lips, and then really all that's left is the smoky makeup, and she will be done. I don't want to overwork that face either, but I do want it to look similar in tone and quality to the other gals. I don't want her to look any less made up than the rest. I've got to touch in some hair here where I have airbrushed a little bit over the skin there just to blend. Now I just need to go in and with a tiny brush and just sharpen up the hairs, how they are pulled back from the skin. I don't want that to be a solid line. That should be more of a jagged line where you can see individual hairs being pulled back. I'm going to do a quick check on her eye makeup to make sure she doesn't have a lot of makeup going on beyond the smoky eye, and then she'll be ready for that last bit, and that's really all that is remaining. I'm going to go ahead and I'm wondering. No, I think before I glue the top down, the chest down to the hips, that I want to take that out and do the flat coat separately, then come back in, and possibly then I will do a flat coat, or do a flat coat on that, and then glue the two halves together. Okay, I just brought the torso back in. I put a clear coat on that. Everything's looking fine. There is a bit of silver touch-up to do on the hips and going down to the feet. Now the silver touch-up is because when you put a clear coat over some of these metallics. They have a tendency to dull the metallic back down. And what I want to do is bring some of those silver highlights back up, particularly around the belt. There are some buckles in some of these straps that need to be repainted. The knife has not been glued down yet, so that'll come next. And then we'll do the same here. We'll go over a lot of the silver bits and see what needs to be brought back up. It doesn't seem to be as noticeable here. The silver seems to be in pretty good shape. So once that happens, I can glue the top two parts together, and that'll just leave me the head, and that'll be it. Well, what a waste, what a waste. Now, I'm sorry, I had to get that last joke in before I cover this up, and that's what I'm going to do. I am getting ready to epoxy the torso to the hips and waist at this point, and you'll say, Lou, why are you using epoxy? And why aren't you using CA like you have been doing all along? And I'll tell you, I don't have a really good reason. I just want to go ahead and use some epoxy on this. It's going to have to kind of be put together and then mushed into final position. And that's not something you can do with CA. Once you put CA down, it has a tendency to grab in place and want to stay there. And this has got some, it's not really a clean joint. It's got some voids in there. And I think if I can fill the area with some epoxy, that will seep into some of those voids and give me a better joint. Now, I am going to be very, very careful not to put anything on here that's going to run the risk of seeping out towards the outside world. So what I'm going to be putting down is going to be very close to the inside. I just need to move this closer to the inside edge. I don't want to get far enough away that it's going to want to seep out around it. So we're going to keep all of our glue kind of in the center, all of our epoxy in the center here. It's okay if it goes down inside that hole where the peg meets it. That's no problem at all. I just don't want it to come out where any of it might run down the belly or the outside flesh. So we're going to keep that like this. This is 15-minute epoxy. This will give me lots of good working time. And we've got holes down inside there for the they were drain holes when this was printing, so I'm not worried about it building up anything in there. It could always just get squished down. So here we go. We are, I'll go ahead and take this off the base while I do this. Just kind of pushing these two together. Did I get a little bit on her tummy? That's an errant drop there that has to be cleaned up. Okay, great. Now I can sit this back here kind of out of the way. Put it back on the base. And this much of it is done. I'm just holding it down, rocking it back and forth. We're going to let that joint take all the time in the world that it wants to take to set up. Okay, now granted the color shifting on this is a little bit into the sepia, but it should show you what the amount of eye makeup is, and that's what I am shooting for. It's a drawn in underneath the eye, but it's a heavy eyeshadow. There's no color up in here per se, but this raccoon eye is very, very strong, and that's what I'm going to try to emulate on mine. I think I might end up shaving the eyebrow down a little. Hers looks a little thinner than what I've got, but that's what I'm shooting for. So be kind if that's not how it turns out. I have to tell you, maybe it's just the fact I've done these so many times. I am really happy with how this face turned out, and I have to tell you, I have to make full disclosure, those eyes are the first attempt. They are not the normal, let's do this 5 times and clean everything off and redo them again. But I think that turned out pretty sharp. Now, this has not been glued down, obviously. It has not been clear coated. I did put a gloss over the eyes and lips just to see how it would look. You know, I'm to the point where I don't want to mess anything up, so I'm going to walk away from it, come back, see how I feel. But and you know, it doesn't look like Jamie Chung. No, it doesn't. The sculpt didn't look like her, so it would be a near miracle to get the paint job to look like her. If anything, I don't know how many of you people out there watch a lot of home renovation shows. If anything, she looks a bit like Joanna Gaines, which is good because, you know, Joanna Gaines is half Korean, so there is an Asian influence in there. But that, I think, now if anything, I would suggest that maybe there's not enough contrast in there. That maybe particularly up on her forehead and in the creases around her lips and her nose, that we could stand to do a little bit more contrast. I may come back and do that, but for right now, I'm perfectly willing to walk away from that and come back a little later and see how I really feel. The eye makeup is heavy, but not uncharacteristic, not out of character. I thinned the eyebrows down a bit. Again, both of the eyes are they're pointing the same direction, maybe slightly cross-eyed, but that's not, again, not out of character. Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday. Welcome to the last day on the Amber build. I am in the high 90s here. I am 99.43% finished with this build. There's just a couple of niggling little details. I am still not wild about her lip color. I'm wondering what I can do to get a little bit brighter of a pink than that. Really happy with the eyes. Don't get me wrong. I'm really happy with those. Those turned out about as well as I could expect. I'm just doing things like putting the gloss back over some spots. I sprayed, as you know, I sprayed this with a flat coat yesterday. And there are some areas that I need to regloss, such as fingernail polish, the lollipop, things like that, that got flattened, understandably, when you put the flat coat on. I've already gone back yesterday and retouched the metallics, the silvers, to bring that brightness back up. But things like, well, see, now it's very difficult to get to her fingers, to paint them, to get to the fingernail polish because of the positioning of her hands. Just going back in, doing that, doing the thumb. I think I'm going to take the big brush here and get a big dip on there and re-gloss her lollipop. And I did break with the model on this a bit in that I made it a bright red lollipop rather than a pink lollipop. I think it just, I believe I said it before, that pop of color in an otherwise, no, I'm not going to say drab, even though the color is, you know, olive drab, but in that otherwise green surrounding, having that complementary red color just act as a spotlight, I think adds a lot to that. I think pink is a weaker choice in that respect, and I think I did notice that the toy maker also went red with the lollipop, I think for the same reason. But put the gloss on her eyes, and I'm thinking now it's kind of Naya Rivera slash Joanna Gaines versus Jamie Chung. I went back in and I darkened her pupils. The lighter brown pupil, that was kind of bugging me too. So making that darker helped. I have to touch up the two colors on her necklace. I went back in and sprayed this morning just the slightest bit on her lower jaw there. She had a bit of a, I hate to say it, but a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow going on, and I needed to soften that up some. But right now we're kind of in that realm of the area of, unless I tell you the detail that I've changed, it's kind of hard to spot them. It's an overall sharpening and crisping of all of the colors and all of the contrasts, but it's not necessarily something that's really obvious that stands out. So I'm taking it very slowly, very easily. I may go in and paint something and walk away and come back 20 minutes later and paint one other thing and then walk away, because I'm got to the point now where I don't want to inadvertently screw something up by the fact that I am touching something and I might have wet paint on my head. So very, very cautiously coming towards the end here. All right, I'm all about ready to finish this up. Now, I have just touched up the white on her necklace. There is a white accenting in her actual costume that is not included in this sculpt, and I am if I don't take care of myself, I'm liable to try it just to see how well it would work. One last thing I want to do before all's said and done. I want to take another stab at that lipstick color. It needs to be a little bit brighter pink. So we're going to set the head aside, put her back on her neck there. I'm going to try to mix up a pink that I think will work in the palette, or in the yes, I'm going to get the old actual pink out in the mixing tray in here. I'm going to try it out and see if I like it. If I can get something that I think will work, I will try it. If not, I will give up the ghost, glue her head down, and call it a done thing. We're going to let that dry to see how see whether it darkens down any, but I like it. I'm quite happy with that. We'll pop that back on her head and let it sit. I'm going to try. This is what happens when I have too much time, and it may not be the smartest thing. When have I ever done the smartest thing? Oh, the stories I could tell. I'm going to try to put a little white line right at the top of her bustier there, because again, like I said, there is a white accenting. Now, it's also on her panties, but I shan't be trying that. But I can put one white line there. Okay, I kind of like that. I got to tell you, that line, that little white line up above her bustier does give a nice, just a little bit of accenting there. Just a little peak, you know, a tease. And we're to the point now where the last thing to do is to glue the head on and call it done. And I'm kind of at that stage where I'm putting it off. I'm stalling because, you know, are you done? Do you want it to be done? Do you wish you still had more stuff to do? I'm kind of in the middle of all of that because, you know, you get so attached to something after working on it for a while to the point where I don't know if I'm ready to be over with it yet. So I'm making excuses. I'm trying to find little things that I could do to forestall the finish here. Let's pop this head off. I want to put some more accenting into her hair. Trying to give it something a little bit more interesting to go by, because it doesn't have the wild, you know, hairdo, or she doesn't have the wild hairdo of some of the other characters. So it's just pulled tight and back and in a bun, and doesn't hang down over her shoulders or anything like that. So I'm trying to find ways to make it a little more interesting. And I think one last thing to do is, I know she's in the army, but she needs some attention paid to her navel. Just a little darkening in there. Little shading. There. Okay. Nothing left to do but to glue. There's a t-shirt for you. Nothing left to do but to glue. A little bit of paste in that neck. Oh, did I put... Yeah, she's got gloss over the eyes. Oh, I need to gloss the lips now that I've got that pink, the color I like it. I need to put some gloss on. And that's a little bit easier to do now when I can hold it in one hand than it would be to do in place. So yeah, I'm stalling. But something else I need to check. Something else. I'm going to go out in the other room and I'm going to check the other figures to see whether I painted in the white highlight on the eye or whether or not I didn't. Because I want them all to be consistent. I want them all to either have that highlight painted or not. The answer is a little of both. I thought I was being consistent. I painted in, the only one I painted the highlight in was on baby doll's eyes. And I think maybe it's because they're blue and I wanted to point out that highlight. The rest of them have either hazel or brown eyes, including Amber here. And in those cases I did not paint the highlight in, so I am not going to paint the highlight in on her, which is good news because that's the kind of last minute thing that I would do and it would end up screwing up something. Now I just need to get the glue out, the CA, so to speak. Get the CA out. I am not going to epoxy this because my luck would be the epoxy would run down and out of her neck and make a glop. I'm going to glue some on her peg. Nothing in the front there that's going to run the risk of running out. So the head is glued down and that was on camera. Okay, we're going to let that dry. And then we're going to, I think, take her outside and see how she looks in the bright sun, because I'm trying to think about how to put them all together for a photo in such a way that there's room around it. And I think the only thing I can do would be to take them out on the back deck, because where they're situated now is not really conducive for a group shot. Oh, one thing I can do right now, hold the phone. I'll go ahead and do the beauty shot in here of just her. And that is to put it on the turntable here. Put her on the turntable so that we can turn the tables on her. I like what I did there. Let's pull the camera back and check the color balance. Okay, here is, move the lamp off of her maybe, but in the we can see what it looks like with the head on attachment, and there's the ever worrisome mesh hose. I think it's just swell. Now let's see how she looks with the other gals. And as promised, here are the 5 young ladies out in the mid-afternoon sun, catching some rays. And unless Moonju changes his mind, I checked his Facebook page just before I turned the camera on. This is going to be the extent of it. This is all the single ladies. But there are, unless he plans making more in the set, this will be the extent of it. So this is what they look like when they're all in one happy place. Now it's weird, Amber does look like she's standing off from the rest, but really her base is as close as the rest of them. It's just that big robot head at the bottom is keeping it from being any closer. The other ladies are kind of ganged up a little bit tighter, but I have to say I think I've come a ways in my painting ability since I started. Makes me want to start from scratch again with Baby Doll here and start again and see how well they would turn out the second time around. But no, I have a feeling that once through was enough. Get a look at how the bases interlock, and then all the way up to the top. And like I said, that brings an end to the Amber build. What a sweetheart she turned out to be. And in a much larger sense, it brings an end to the SuckerPunch series of builds. If you find yourself on a cold and rainy day with nothing to do, you might want to take a look at the whole playlist for the SuckerPunch figures. You'll see that I've been doing this for close to 2 years to get all of these kids done, and in many ways I think I've learned a lot, but in many ways I think I'm just as stumbling through this as I was when I started on Baby Doll. It was, for a guy who is much more comfortable in the depths of space with a starship, this is about as big a departure as you can get. Not only doing realistic women, but beauty makeups on top of that, which is, it can be an animal all to itself. And although my concerns about this series are numerous, you'll see that they'd almost always been there since the beginning. The two things that really, that I'm not going to say they bug me, because they don't, but the fact that these are these artistic depictions or artistic interpretations of these characters are not, they are heroically proportioned, as I have said, and that the likenesses have gotten further and further away. I went back and looked at the Baby Doll one, and I was even complaining about the likeness on Baby Doll, and believe it or not, she's probably the most the closest in resemblance to the actual actress of all of these. So once you get past that particular hang up, and you're just concentrating on making them look like beautiful women rather than beautiful specific women, life gets a lot easier. But like I said, it was a challenge at the beginning. It's still a challenge. There are many people who do this much better than I do, so far as doing heroic figures and realistic figures for that matter. But this is always a very good thing, and it's something I'm going to continue to do. Not necessarily SuckerPunch figures, but continue to to intersperse between the starships and all of the hardware and all of the creatures and all of the monsters and all of the robots, is to come back every once in a while and do a realistic made up figure. Say that 5 times fast. And keep one foot in the real world, so to speak. So until next time, which will be, let's see, this is Wednesday. I'm going to upload this tonight. I'll probably find something to finish out the week and then upload something short on Friday just to keep myself on schedule. So until next time we meet, remember, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So until then, you be good to each other, be safe, be smart, and we'll see you here next time.